so I'm super, super excited to introduce you guys to Southerners on New Ground, and some of the members of Southerners on New Ground here today that were part of the campaign here in North Carolina to really fight against Amendment 1. And so I'd like to introduce to you Jade Brooks. About how we win, right?
My name is Jade, and I'm a member of Song Southerners on New Ground. Has anyone heard of Song before? Yeah. We are so humbled and honored to be here, and I just have to give a shout out too, because we're especially honored to speak after the UFCW members. UFCW was one of the only unions in North Carolina who passed a resolution against the amendment. Incredibly brave thing to do it, and a choice that we can tell you not every union made. And so thank you so much for supporting us. Has everyone heard of Amendment 1? Some of us. So we're here to talk about this campaign against a constitutional amendment that we in North Carolina, some of us voted on in May, and the amendment was passed. So we claim this campaign as a win, but we lost in some ways too. And so I think it's important that we say both of those together. We are members of Song, as I said, and we live here in North Carolina. And this was a fight that in some ways Song was reluctant to come into. Song had been putting most of its energy into a fight for immigrant rights in Georgia at that time. And campaigns are burn you out, as we all know. And Song really came into this campaign because as members, we demanded that they come into this campaign. Because as queer people who live here, we felt that this amendment, which would define marriage, which does define marriage as between one man and one woman, was hurting our dignity and our right to exist where we live. And in Song, we like to say our rightful place, which is here in our homes. So the strategy that we used during the campaign was around storytelling. And we felt like it would be more effective if, as queer people, we talked to our neighbors and our coworkers and our kids' preschool teachers about what the amendment would mean for our lives. That would be more effective in having people relate to us than a phone call or working the polls or an ad campaign. And especially, we felt it was important to get into this fight because there was a lot of outside money coming into this state on both sides. And we saw that money going towards people who don't look like us, towards mostly white people, mostly upper class people, mostly gay men, right? And so our strategy was led by people of color, by women of color specifically, and our strategy was to have a presence in every one of the 100 counties in North Carolina. And we felt it was really important looking to pass campaigns against these same form of amendments that really focused on the cities or the urban areas or where the colleges are and left out the rural people. And one of the reasons we claim this as a win is because we showed up in rural counties all across this state, and rural people, queer people who live in those places, showed so much bravery, I can't even tell you. In Randolph County, which is kind of in the middle of North Carolina, in Asheboro, Ange and Barb Cloninger are raising 3, now 4 kids. And they host a weekly supper every week where queer, mostly youth, come to their house and have supper and hang out. They have like 12 dogs. And Ange and Barb, throughout this campaign, they'd go everywhere. They'd go out to eat at pizza places and tell their pizza waitress, "Are you voting against?" Or they'd drop their kids off at another kid's house and ask the parents, "Are you voting against?" And so we feel like building that kind of a base all across the state was such a victory. And We were incredibly supported throughout this campaign by the other people who stood up for us, including the UFCW, including Reverend Nelson and the other Black ministers in Greensboro and all across the state, and including Reverend Barber, who was just on the movie, who's the head of NAACP. That kind of coalition and solidarity hasn't been present in other amendments like this throughout the South or throughout the country, and that's an incredible victory.